Leo was born on a quiet spring morning, the sunlight spilling softly into the hospital room. His mother held him in her arms, staring down at the tiny bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. From the first moment, she noticed that Leo's features were a little different from other babies. Doctors gently explained that Leo had Down syndrome. They told his parents that he might face challenges that other children would not, but that he would still have the capacity for love, joy, and growth. His parents listened carefully, feeling a mix of worry and hope. They didn't know what the future would hold, but they promised each other that they would give Leo a life full of love, encouragement, and patience. In the beginning, life was a whirlwind of small milestones. Leo's parents celebrated the tiny victories: his first smile, his first word, his first steps. Each achievement brought tears of joy, but as Leo grew, the differences became harder to ignore. He learned more slowly than other children. His speech was sometimes hard to understand, and he often struggled with tasks that seemed simple to his peers. At kindergarten, he found himself staring at the playground, watching other children run, climb, and play games he didn't fully understand. Sometimes he tried to join in, but they would laugh at him when he stumbled or didn't follow the rules correctly. Leo didn't always understand why they laughed. He would come home with tear-stained cheeks, clutching his favorite toy for comfort. His mother would hug him tightly, whispering, "It's not because you're not good enough, Leo. You just do things your way." That's special. His father would sit beside him, explaining gently that not everyone knows how to be kind, and that the best thing he could do was keep trying and never stop believing in himself. At school, the challenges multiplied. Teachers, though well-meaning, sometimes had little time to give him extra attention. Leo often felt frustrated when he couldn't finish the assignments as quickly as other students. He would watch as classmates raised their hands confidently, reading aloud without hesitation, while he struggled to form words. The laughter of other children echoed in his mind, and the feeling of being different pressed heavily on his small shoulders. But Leo had something inside him that no one could take away: a deep love for music. It started with a simple fascination. Whenever Leo heard a piano playing, whether on television or in a nearby classroom, his attention was drawn instantly. His eyes would widen, his hands would twitch slightly as if he wanted to reach out and touch the notes. Sometimes he would hum along softly, even if he didn't know the words or the melody. Music made him feel alive in a way that nothing else did. It was as if each note understood him, as if the piano could hear the thoughts and feelings he couldn't express in words. At home, his parents noticed this early love for music. They had a small keyboard in the living room, more for decoration than use, but Leo would sit by it for hours. He pressed keys randomly at first, creating a jumble of sounds, yet he smiled as if he had discovered a secret only he could understand. His mother watched, amazed at the joy on his face. "Look at him," she whispered to his father. "He's happy, really happy, and maybe, just maybe, this is where he belongs." The world outside, however, was not always kind. In the neighborhood, children could be cruel without even realizing it. When Leo walked to the park with his parents, some kids would make fun of the way he walked or the way he spoke. They didn't mean to be malicious. They were just unaware, teasing out of ignorance. But to Leo, it felt like a wall he could not climb. He began to avoid the playground at times, choosing to stay close to his parents rather than face the laughter. Despite these challenges, Leo's parents never let him feel lesser than anyone else. They encouraged him to try, to explore, and to express himself no matter how small the steps. They celebrated even the tiniest achievements: learning a new word, taking part in a simple game, or even trying to answer a question in class. Each success, no matter how small, was a victory worth rejoicing. Slowly, Leo began to understand that while the world could be harsh, there were people who believed in him and loved him unconditionally. At home, music became a constant companion. Whenever Leo felt sad, frustrated, or overwhelmed, he would sit at the keyboard and let his fingers wander across the keys. Sometimes he created melodies that made his parents stop and listen in awe. They were not always perfect in the technical sense, but they were full of emotion, full of life, full of a story only Leo could tell. His father would smile and say, "You don't just play notes, Leo, you tell stories. That's something very special." School, however, remained a place of challenges. Teachers did their best, but the pace of a normal classroom could be difficult for Leo. Assignments took longer to complete. Reading aloud was stressful. And at recess, the laughter of other children reminded him that he was different. Sometimes he felt invisible, sometimes he felt misunderstood. But music remained his refuge. The keyboard at home was his stage, his comfort, and his voice. One afternoon, after a particularly hard day at school, Leo sat quietly in the corner of his room. His parents gave him space, but they watched from the doorway. He pressed a few keys randomly at first, then slowly, carefully, he began to play a simple tune he had heard on the radio. The sound was soft and imperfect, yet it carried something powerful. His mother's eyes welled up with tears. "He's telling us how he feels," she whispered. His father nodded, realizing that in music, Leo had found a language the world could not take away from him. Even as he faced laughter and misunderstanding, Leo began to grow in quiet confidence. He didn't know it yet, but the piano would become more than just an escape. It would become a bridge to others, a way to connect, a way to show the world that he had something extraordinary to offer. The boy who was laughed at, who struggled to keep up, who often felt out of place, was beginning to discover a spark that could not be dimmed. As months passed, Leo's fascination with music deepened. He would sit at the keyboard for hours, sometimes with a notebook beside him, drawing shapes and patterns, trying to match them to the sounds he created. His parents encouraged him gently, never pushing, never forcing, simply being there to guide and support him. They began to notice small improvements in his coordination and understanding of rhythm. His fingers moved more confidently, and he seemed to remember tunes after hearing them only once. At school, there were still challenges. Some children continued to tease. Some teachers still struggled to give him enough attention. But Leo's parents reminded him every night that his worth was not measured by the laughter of others, but by the effort, love, and joy he put into everything he did. "You have a gift," they would say, "and one day, the world will see it." By the time Leo reached the age of 7, his love for the piano had become undeniable. It was not just a hobby. It was a part of him. Even on days when words failed him, when school was exhausting, when other children laughed, the piano welcomed him without judgment. His fingers danced across the keys with growing skill and confidence. The sounds he created were more than noise. They were expressions of hope, of resilience, of a spirit that refused to be silenced. Leo's journey was only beginning, and the world had not yet seen the true extent of his talent. But in that small room with the keyboard, surrounded by parents who loved him unconditionally, he felt safe. He felt understood. And most importantly, he felt capable. The boy who had been laughed at, who had faced so many challenges, was discovering that he had something unique to offer, a gift that could one day touch hearts and change minds. The story of Leo's childhood is a story of struggle, resilience, and quiet determination. It reminds us that even in the face of misunderstanding and laughter, a spark of passion and love can grow into something extraordinary. For Leo, that spark was music, and it was about to light a path that would take him far beyond the confines of his small world, beyond the teasing of children, and into a place where his talent could shine for everyone to see. As Leo grew, his fascination with the piano became impossible to ignore. His parents could see it in the way he lit up when music played, how his tiny fingers moved with curiosity whenever he touched the keys, and how he hummed along, even when he didn't know the melody. They decided it was time to help him explore his gift more seriously. One afternoon, his mother searched online and found a local music school that offered piano lessons for children of all abilities. They made an appointment to meet the teacher, a kind woman named Mrs. Jensen, who had a reputation for patience and understanding. The first time Leo walked into the music room, he felt nervous. The room smelled faintly of polish and wood, and sunlight streamed through tall windows, landing on the grand piano in the center. His parents held his hands, reassuring him softly. "You'll be fine, Leo, just enjoy the music," his mother whispered. Leo nodded, unsure of what to expect. Mrs. Jensen knelt down to his level and smiled warmly. "Hello, Leo. I've heard you love music," she said. Her voice was calm, gentle, and filled with encouragement. Leo's lips curled into a small smile. She guided him to the piano bench and showed him how to sit comfortably. At first, she let him press the keys randomly, letting him explore the instrument without any pressure. Leo's small fingers stumbled and hit wrong notes, but Mrs. Jensen simply laughed softly. "That's wonderful," she said. "You're discovering what the piano can do." The first few lessons were simple and exploratory. Leo learned to recognize the black and white keys, and he began practicing small melodies like Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star. Every success, no matter how tiny, was celebrated. Mrs. Jensen never scolded him for mistakes. Instead, she encouraged him to try again. Slowly, Leo started to understand that music was more than just pressing keys. It was about expression, feeling, and rhythm. His eyes shone with joy every time he played a new tune correctly. At home, the piano became a constant companion. Leo would spend hours in his room, pressing keys and experimenting with sounds. Sometimes his melodies were simple and repetitive, but they always carried a sense of emotion. His parents would sit quietly listening, amazed at the clarity of feeling he could convey without words. They noticed subtle improvements in his coordination, timing, and memory. Even when Leo struggled to speak or complete other tasks, the piano seemed to unlock a part of him that nothing else could. However, the outside world continued to challenge him. At school, children were still sometimes unkind. Some laughed when he stumbled over words or took longer to finish a task. Other kids didn't understand why Leo spent so much time at home with a piano instead of playing outside. Occasionally, Leo would bring a simple tune to class and try to share it with his classmates, but often they were uninterested or impatient. These moments were painful, but Leo never gave up. He had found a space where he felt capable and confident, and that gave him strength to face other parts of his life. Mrs. Jensen began introducing more structured lessons as Leo improved. He learned to read simple sheet music and understand rhythm patterns. At first, reading music was challenging. Leo had to memorize where the notes were on the page and match them with the keys. Sometimes he became frustrated when he couldn't get it right immediately, but Mrs. Jensen remained patient. "Everyone learns at their own pace, Leo. What matters is that you keep trying," she reminded him. Slowly, the pieces he played became more recognizable, more harmonious, and more expressive. One day, Mrs. Jensen noticed something extraordinary. While practicing a simple piece, Leo began to improvise without being asked. His small hands moved across the keys in a way that was natural and intuitive. He created a melody that was entirely his own. Mrs. Jensen watched silently, awe filling her eyes. "Leo," she said softly, "you're not just playing. You're creating music. That is a special gift." Leo beamed, proud of himself. For the first time, he felt that his talent was not only recognized but also appreciated. Word of Leo's talent slowly began to spread. His parents shared videos of him playing at home with a few close friends and family members. Everyone was amazed at how expressive and talented he was, especially considering the challenges he faced in other areas of life. Encouraged by this support, Leo started practicing more consistently. He set small goals for himself, like learning a new piece each week. Each accomplishment, whether big or small, boosted his confidence and reinforced his love for music. Music also began to help Leo in other areas of his life. His speech improved as he sang along to tunes. His coordination and focus sharpened as he learned complex rhythms. Even his social confidence grew. He began sharing his music with neighbors and friends, often performing short pieces during family gatherings. While he still faced moments of doubt and difficulty, the piano had become a bridge between him and the world, a way for him to communicate feelings that words sometimes failed to express. There were challenges along the way. Some days Leo felt frustrated and wanted to give up. He would press a key incorrectly, frown, and sigh heavily. At those times, his parents and Mrs. Jensen reminded him to be patient and kind to himself. "Every musician makes mistakes," Mrs. Jensen explained. "It's part of learning. What matters is that you keep going." Gradually, Leo learned resilience. He discovered that persistence, patience, and love for what he did were more important than perfection. One particular afternoon stood out. Leo had been struggling with a piece that required quick hand movements and precise timing. He had attempted it countless times, but each try ended in frustration. Mrs. Jensen suggested they take a short break, and she encouraged him to simply play whatever came naturally. Leo hesitated at first, but then his fingers found the keys moving freely. He created a melody that was different from the original, yet beautiful and harmonious. Mrs. Jensen's eyes filled with tears. "See, Leo, you are not just following music. You are making it your own. That is extraordinary." Leo smiled widely, realizing that music was not about perfection. It was about expression, creativity, and joy. As months turned into a year, Leo's skills grew remarkably. He learned to play more complex pieces and began to understand musical theory at a basic level. He could read simple sheet music fluently and memorize longer compositions. His parents watched with pride as their son transformed before their eyes. The boy who once struggled to speak and play simple games was now creating music that carried emotion and depth. It was a joy not only for Leo but also for everyone who heard him play. Music also became a tool for connection. Leo's parents encouraged him to share his talent with others outside the home. He performed at small local events, playing simple recitals for neighbors and community members. While he initially felt nervous, each performance boosted his confidence and allowed him to experience the joy of sharing his gift. People who once underestimated him began to recognize his talent. The same child who had been laughed at for his differences was now admired for his courage, determination, and musical ability. Leo's piano journey also inspired those around him. Other children at school began to take notice, and some even showed interest in learning an instrument themselves. Teachers recognized that Leo's dedication and talent were remarkable. They began to encourage him more openly, giving him opportunities to perform during school events. Leo's confidence grew further, and he started to believe that he could achieve even greater things. Despite all the progress, Leo remained humble and focused on the joy of music rather than praise or recognition. He continued to practice daily, exploring new melodies, improvising, and learning new techniques. For Leo, the piano was more than an instrument. It was a friend, a guide, and a source of endless joy. Through it, he learned resilience, creativity, and self-expression. By the end of this period, Leo had transformed significantly. The boy who once felt invisible and misunderstood had found a place where he could shine. His passion for music gave him confidence, a sense of purpose, and a voice that could touch others' hearts. His parents and Mrs. Jensen realized that they had not only nurtured a talented musician, but also helped a child discover his inner strength and courage. Leo's story at this stage is a reminder that talent and determination can thrive even in the face of challenges. With love, support, and patience, a child can discover abilities they never imagined they had. Music had become Leo's safe space, his means of expression, and the key to unlocking a future filled with possibilities. The boy who once faced laughter and doubt was now learning to embrace his uniqueness, one note at a time. As Leo continued to grow, his love for the piano became more than a hobby. It was a part of who he was. Each day, he would sit at the keyboard for hours, exploring new melodies, practicing old ones, and experimenting with sounds that no one else had thought of. The music filled his small room, echoing through the house, and often drew the attention of neighbors who would pause to listen, amazed at the emotion in his playing. But while Leo found confidence and joy at the piano, the outside world remained a place where he sometimes felt doubt and criticism. School was not always easy. Despite his parents' encouragement and the progress he was making with music, some children continued to tease him. They didn't understand why Leo spent so much time practicing the piano instead of playing with them on the playground. Some laughed when he stumbled over words, and others whispered comments that hurt more than they realized. Leo tried to ignore them, but the laughter and teasing often lingered in his mind, making him feel isolated. There were moments when he wanted to give up entirely, to hide away and avoid facing the world that seemed so unkind. His teachers also had their doubts. Some of them admired Leo's talent, but worried that he might struggle with academics or social interactions in the long run. They sometimes expressed concern that he was focusing too much on music and not enough on other subjects. These words weighed on his parents, who knew that Leo was capable of learning in his own way, and that music was not a distraction, but a bridge to his confidence and growth. They continued to support him, insisting that his unique abilities and determination were more important than fitting into a conventional mold. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging day at school, Leo came home in tears. He had tried to answer a question in class but struggled to find the right words. A few children had whispered and giggled, and the teacher had moved on without offering him encouragement. Leo felt small, frustrated, and defeated. His mother knelt beside him, holding his hands. "Leo, you are capable of amazing things," she said softly. "Sometimes people don't understand, but that doesn't mean you're not special. You have something they can't see yet." Leo wiped his tears and sat at his piano. The familiar keys felt comforting under his fingers. As if they understood him in a way that no one else could, he began to play slowly, pressing each key with care. The notes filled the room, soft at first, then growing bolder, more confident. His father listened from the doorway, amazed at how the music seemed to carry all of Leo's frustration and turn it into something beautiful. "You see, Leo?" he whispered. "Even when the world is harsh, your music is strong. It tells your story better than words ever could." Over time, Leo began to use the piano as a tool not just for comfort, but for resilience. Each time he faced teasing or doubt, he would retreat to the keys and let his feelings flow into melodies. Slowly, he started to understand that mistakes and setbacks were not the end. They were part of the process. Every note he played, every song he learned became a small victory that reinforced his confidence. Music was teaching him patience, persistence, and self-expression. As his skill grew, so did his creativity. Leo began to experiment with composing his own pieces. He would hum a melody, then try to recreate it on the piano. Sometimes it sounded rough and uneven, but he kept trying, adjusting each note until it matched the vision in his mind. Mrs. Jensen encouraged him, praising his efforts and reminding him that creating something original was just as important as learning classical pieces. "Leo, you're discovering your voice," she said one day, "and your voice is beautiful." Leo also began to notice the power his music had over others. When he played in front of family or friends, people would stop and listen, captivated by the emotion in each note. Some would smile, some would close their eyes, and some would even shed tears. Leo realized that through his piano, he could connect with people in a way that words could never achieve. This understanding gave him purpose and motivation. He wanted to share his music, to let others feel what he felt, and to show that being different was not a limitation. It could be a strength. However, not every experience was positive. During a school talent show, Leo decided to perform a short piece he had been practicing for weeks. The gymnasium was filled with students, teachers, and parents. As he began to play, a few children snickered, whispering comments about his Down syndrome. Leo's fingers faltered for a moment, and he felt a wave of self-doubt. But then he took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and let the music guide him. Slowly, his confidence returned, and he played the piece beautifully. By the time he finished, the room erupted in applause. The same people who had doubted him were now clapping and cheering. That day, Leo realized that courage and determination could overcome even the harshest criticism. Encouraged by experiences like this, Leo's parents and Mrs. Jensen began to explore opportunities for him to perform in public more often. They arranged for small recitals at local community centers and family gatherings. At first, Leo was nervous, but each performance boosted his confidence and allowed him to experience the joy of sharing his gift. He learned to handle nerves, to focus on the music rather than the audience, and to trust in his abilities. With every performance, Leo's reputation as a talented young musician grew. Even though Leo faced moments of criticism and doubt, his determination never wavered. Music became a constant companion, a source of comfort and a means of self-expression. He developed routines for practicing, setting small goals for himself and celebrating achievements. He learned that progress was not always linear. Some days were harder than others, but persistence and patience always paid off. His parents watched with pride as their son transformed into a confident, resilient, and expressive young musician. Leo's journey also inspired those around him. His classmates began to take notice of his dedication and talent. Some who had teased him earlier began to show interest in music themselves, asking him questions and listening attentively when he played. Teachers recognized the importance of supporting his strengths, offering encouragement and praise rather than focusing solely on areas of struggle. Slowly, Leo became a role model for other children, showing that determination, patience, and passion could overcome obstacles. As Leo matured, he began to understand that talent alone was not enough. Hard work, persistence, and belief in oneself were just as important. He learned to practice consistently, to embrace mistakes as learning opportunities, and to celebrate small victories. Music was no longer just an escape. It was a path to personal growth, confidence, and self-expression. The boy who had once been laughed at was now learning to embrace his uniqueness and share it with the world. One day, Mrs. Jensen suggested that Leo try composing an original piece for an upcoming community event. At first, he was hesitant. He had never performed a piece he had created entirely by himself. But with encouragement, he began to experiment with melodies, rhythms, and harmonies. Hours of practice and trial and error followed, and slowly, a beautiful composition began to take shape. When he finally played it in front of a small audience, people were moved by the emotion and depth of the music. Leo felt a sense of accomplishment he had never experienced before, realizing that his talent could create something entirely new, something that touched hearts. Despite all his progress, Leo remained humble and focused on the joy of music rather than fame or recognition. He continued to practice daily, exploring new melodies, improvising, and learning new techniques. He found joy in small achievements like mastering a difficult section of a song or creating a melody that perfectly matched a feeling in his heart. Music became a lifelong companion, teaching him lessons about patience, resilience, creativity, and self-expression. By the end of this stage in his journey, Leo had grown remarkably, both as a musician and as a person. He had faced criticism, doubt, and moments of self-doubt, yet he had persevered. The boy who had once felt invisible and misunderstood had discovered a voice that could not be ignored. Through music, he had learned to navigate challenges, express himself, and inspire others. He had transformed not only his own life but also the lives of those around him, showing that talent, determination, and love could overcome even the most difficult obstacles. Leo's story at this point is a testament to the power of resilience and passion. Even when faced with laughter, doubt, and criticism, he continued to pursue what he loved. His journey reminds us that every child, no matter their challenges, has unique talents that deserve recognition and encouragement. Through patience, love, and support, Leo had turned obstacles into opportunities, using his music to grow, connect, and inspire. The lessons Leo learned during these years would stay with him forever. He discovered that mistakes were not failures but stepping stones, that persistence was more powerful than doubt, and that passion could transform fear into courage. His piano playing was no longer just a pastime. It was a reflection of his spirit, a testament to his perseverance, and a symbol of hope for anyone who had ever felt underestimated or misunderstood. Leo had been practicing the piano for years now, and his talent had grown beyond what anyone had imagined. His fingers moved across the keys with confidence, creating melodies that carried emotion and life. Music had become more than a hobby. It was a part of him, a voice that could speak when words failed. Yet despite all his progress, Leo had never performed in front of a large audience. The idea both excited and terrified him. One afternoon, Mrs. Jensen approached Leo's parents with an idea. "There's a local piano competition coming up," she said gently. "It's open to children of all ages and abilities. I think Leo is ready to take part." His parents exchanged glances, feeling a mix of pride and concern. They knew that Leo had grown tremendously, but performing in front of a crowd could be overwhelming. Still, they trusted Mrs. Jensen's judgment and knew that Leo needed opportunities to shine. When Mrs. Jensen explained the competition to Leo, he hesitated. The thought of so many people watching him made his stomach twist. "What if I make a mistake?" he whispered. Mrs. Jensen knelt beside him and smiled. "Leo, mistakes are part of music. Everyone makes them, even the best musicians. What matters is that you share your music and do your best. The people listening will feel your heart in your playing." Leo nodded slowly, feeling both nervous and encouraged. He decided to give it a try. Preparation for the competition became Leo's focus. Every day he practiced for hours, repeating the same pieces until they felt perfect. He worked on timing, expression, and confidence. Sometimes he became frustrated when a note didn't sound right, or his fingers didn't move as quickly as he wanted. But each time his parents and Mrs. Jensen reminded him to be patient with himself. "You are doing amazing, Leo," his mother would say. "Every note you play tells a story, and that story is beautiful." As the day of the competition approached, Leo's nerves grew stronger. He could hardly sleep the night before, imagining the audience and wondering if he would perform well. His parents tried to calm him, reminding him of how far he had come. "Remember, Leo," his father said, "this is your chance to share something special. It's not about winning or losing. It's about showing your music to the world." Leo took a deep breath and nodded. He understood that his journey was more important than any trophy. The day of the competition arrived, and the auditorium was filled with families, children, and teachers. The air buzzed with excitement and nerves. Leo's heart pounded as he waited backstage. He could hear the applause for the previous performers, and a wave of anxiety washed over him. Some of the children in the audience whispered and giggled, underestimating him because of his Down syndrome. Leo felt a moment of doubt, but then he remembered Mrs. Jensen's words. Mistakes are part of music, and the audience will feel your heart. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a moment, and stepped onto the stage. Sitting at the grand piano, Leo felt the weight of the moment. The bright lights shone down on him, and the silence of the audience was almost overwhelming. For a moment he hesitated, his fingers hovering above the keys. Then he began to play. The first notes were soft, hesitant, but gradually his confidence grew. Each key he pressed carried emotion, telling a story that transcended words. The music flowed from his heart, filling the auditorium with beauty and grace. As Leo played, the audience was captivated. The same people who had doubted him, who had whispered and laughed, now sat in awe. His fingers danced across the keys, creating melodies that were both delicate and powerful. Every note told a story of struggle, courage, and perseverance. Leo was no longer just a boy with Down syndrome. He was a musician, a storyteller, and an inspiration. The applause and whispers of admiration grew louder with each passing moment. By the time Leo finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Some people were on their feet, clapping and cheering. Tears filled the eyes of his parents, Mrs. Jensen, and even strangers who had been moved by the performance. Leo's cheeks flushed with a mix of pride and relief. He had done it. He had faced his fear, shared his music, and touched the hearts of everyone in the room. For the first time, he felt the full power of his talent and the recognition that came with it. The judges praised Leo's performance, highlighting not only his technical skill, but also the emotion and creativity he had shown. They noted how he had transformed the music into something uniquely his own. His parents could hardly contain their pride. "That was incredible, Leo," his mother whispered. "You showed everyone who you really are." His father hugged him tightly, adding, "You were amazing. Never forget how strong and talented you are." After the competition, Leo's performance became a source of inspiration for others. Local newspapers and community websites shared his story, highlighting how a boy with Down syndrome had overcome challenges to shine on stage. People from all over the community reached out to congratulate him and express how moved they were by his music. Leo received letters and messages from children and adults alike, many of whom were inspired to pursue their own passions despite obstacles. The experience also had a profound effect on Leo himself. He realized that the world might not always understand or accept him, but his talent, determination, and heart could make a difference. He had faced fear, criticism, and doubt, yet he had emerged stronger and more confident. Music had given him a voice, and he understood now that it was powerful enough to connect with people, inspire them, and change perceptions. In the weeks following the competition, Leo continued to practice with renewed enthusiasm. He explored new pieces, experimented with improvisation, and even began composing short original melodies. His parents and Mrs. Jensen encouraged him to keep performing whenever possible, whether at school events, community gatherings, or small recitals at local centers. Each performance gave Leo more confidence and helped him refine his skills, but more importantly, it allowed him to share his passion with others. Leo also began to notice changes in the way people treated him. Some of the children who had once teased him now approached him with curiosity and respect. Teachers began to offer more encouragement and opportunities for him to perform. Neighbors and community members expressed admiration and support. The boy who had once been laughed at was now recognized for his courage, talent, and perseverance. He was no longer defined by his challenges, but by his abilities and spirit. Despite all the praise and recognition, Leo remained humble. He focused on the joy of music rather than accolades or awards. Every practice session was an opportunity to grow, every performance a chance to connect with others. He understood that the true reward of his talent was not fame, but the ability to express himself, inspire others, and find fulfillment in doing what he loved. Leo's journey at this stage of his life is a testament to resilience and courage. He faced fear, doubt, and criticism, but never gave up. He learned that preparation, practice, and belief in oneself were as important as natural talent. Music had become a tool not only for expression, but also for personal growth, confidence, and connection. Through the piano, Leo had discovered that he could face challenges head-on, overcome fear, and touch the hearts of others. The piano competition was a turning point in Leo's life. It showed him that his differences did not define him, and that his talent could shine despite any obstacle. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward even when afraid. Leo had faced the world, shared his gift, and proven to himself and others that perseverance, passion, and belief in oneself could achieve remarkable things. As Leo left the stage that day, his heart was full of pride and joy. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey, that there were many more melodies to explore, challenges to face, and stories to tell through music. The boy who had once been laughed at had now experienced the power of recognition and acceptance, and he understood that his path was just beginning. The piano had given him more than notes. It had given him confidence, purpose, and a voice that could inspire the world. From that day on, Leo continued to practice, perform, and compose with dedication and joy. He shared his music with anyone willing to listen, touching hearts and inspiring others to believe in their own abilities. His parents and Mrs. Jensen remained by his side, proud and supportive, knowing that Leo had discovered not only his talent but also his courage and resilience. The boy who had once faced laughter and doubt had transformed into a young musician whose spirit could not be dimmed. After the piano competition, Leo's life changed in ways he had never imagined. The applause, the recognition, and the admiration he received filled him with a sense of pride and confidence he had never felt before. But more importantly, he discovered that music had given him a voice, a way to express feelings that words often could not convey. He realized that his journey was no longer just about learning to play the piano. It was about sharing his gift, inspiring others, and showing the world that challenges did not define him. Leo continued to practice every day. His parents noticed that he approached each session with determination and joy. Even when faced with difficult pieces or new techniques, he persevered, understanding that each effort brought him closer to his goals. Sometimes he made mistakes and became frustrated, but he had learned that patience and persistence were more important than perfection. Music had taught him resilience, the ability to keep trying even when things were hard, and to celebrate every small victory along the way. As Leo's skills grew, so did the opportunities to share his talent. His parents and Mrs. Jensen encouraged him to perform at local schools, community events, and family gatherings. At first, Leo felt nervous, unsure of how others would react, but each time he played in front of an audience, he gained more confidence. He began to understand that people didn't see him as someone who was different. They saw him as a talented musician who poured his heart into every note. With each performance, Leo felt a growing sense of pride and fulfillment. His performances became a source of inspiration for others, especially children with disabilities. Many parents reached out to Leo's family, sharing how his story had encouraged their own children to pursue their passions despite challenges. Teachers and music instructors praised him as an example of dedication and perseverance. Some even invited him to participate in workshops and events to inspire young musicians. Leo's music had become more than just personal expression. It was a way to uplift and motivate others. Despite his growing recognition, Leo remained humble. He never let attention or praise distract him from his love of music. For him, the piano was not about awards or admiration. It was about joy, creativity, and connection. He continued to experiment with melodies, compose new pieces, and explore different styles of music. Sometimes he would sit quietly for hours listening to music and trying to recreate the emotions he felt on the piano. His parents watched with pride, realizing that Leo had discovered a lifelong passion that would bring him joy for years to come. Over time, Leo also noticed a change in the way people treated him. Some of the children who had once laughed at him now approached him with curiosity and respect. They asked him questions about music, watched him play with interest, and sometimes even tried to learn from him. Teachers, neighbors, and friends expressed admiration and support. The boy who had once felt invisible and misunderstood was now seen for his courage, talent, and determination. His journey showed that difference was not a limitation. It could be a strength, a source of uniqueness, and a way to shine. Leo's growing confidence extended beyond music. He began participating more actively in school activities, speaking up in class and helping other children who faced challenges. He discovered that the same determination and patience he applied to music could be used in other areas of life. While he still faced difficulties, He had learned to approach them with a positive mindset, understanding that effort, persistence, and belief in himself could help him overcome almost any obstacle. One day, Mrs. Jensen suggested that Leo try performing at a larger community event, one that would attract people from neighboring towns. At first, Leo felt nervous. The thought of playing in front of such a big audience was intimidating, but with encouragement from his parents and teacher, he agreed. For weeks, he practiced diligently, preparing a piece that combined both technical skill and emotional expression. When the day arrived, he felt the familiar mix of excitement and anxiety, but he reminded himself that he was sharing his heart through music. As Leo played, the audience was captivated. His fingers moved gracefully across the keys, producing melodies that were both powerful and delicate. People listened in silence, completely absorbed in the music. By the end of his performance, the crowd erupted in applause, and many were moved to tears. Leo's heart swelled with pride and happiness. He had not only performed well, but he had also touched the hearts of strangers, showing them the beauty that could come from dedication, courage, and love for what one does. After the performance, many people came to congratulate him. Some parents shared stories about their own children and how Leo's journey had inspired them to never give up. Teachers and music instructors praised his creativity and perseverance. Leo realized that his music had become more than a personal expression. It was a bridge connecting him with others, a way to inspire, uplift, and spread hope. The boy who had once been laughed at had transformed into a symbol of courage and talent, someone who showed that obstacles could be overcome with determination and love. Over time, Leo's story began to reach a wider audience. Local media covered his journey, highlighting the boy with Down syndrome who had captivated hearts with his piano performances. People from different communities reached out to share their admiration and encouragement. Some invited him to participate in music festivals, workshops, and events where he could share his talent and inspire others. Leo's parents were proud, not just of his skill, but of the strength, resilience, and confidence he had developed along the way. Despite the recognition and opportunities, Leo never lost sight of what truly mattered: his love for music. Every practice session, every performance, and every composition was a reminder of how far he had come and how much he had to offer. He continued to explore new melodies, experiment with rhythms, and create music that expressed his thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Through music, he had discovered not only a talent but also a purpose, a way to connect with the world and share his unique voice. Leo's journey also became a source of inspiration for his peers and community. Children with disabilities saw that determination and passion could overcome challenges. Teachers and parents realized the importance of encouragement, patience, and belief in a child's potential. Leo's story reminded everyone that differences should not be seen as limitations, but as opportunities to discover hidden strengths, talents, and passions. He showed that courage, perseverance, and love could transform lives, not only his own, but also the lives of those around him. Years passed, and Leo continued to grow as a musician and as a person. He faced new challenges and obstacles, but the lessons he had learned through music, patience, resilience, creativity, and self-expression, remained with him. He continued to perform, compose, and inspire others, always focusing on the joy and connection that music brought. His journey was a testament to the power of love, support, and determination, showing that with encouragement and belief in oneself, anything was possible. Leo's story concludes not with an ending, but with a beginning. He had faced laughter, doubt, and criticism, yet he had persevered, discovered his talent, and shared it with the world. He had turned challenges into opportunities, fear into courage, and isolation into connection. The boy who had once been laughed at had become a young musician, whose spirit and talent could touch hearts, inspire others, and remind the world that everyone, no matter their abilities or differences, has something extraordinary to offer. Through his journey, Leo proved that love, encouragement, and belief in oneself are more powerful than any obstacle. Music had given him a voice, confidence, and a way to connect with others. It had allowed him to transform his struggles into achievements, his fears into courage, and his differences into strengths. The boy who had once faced laughter and doubt had now become a beacon of hope, showing that determination, talent, and passion could overcome any challenge. Leo's life continues to inspire, reminding everyone that each person has unique gifts waiting to be discovered. His story is a testament to the importance of patience, support, and belief in oneself, and a celebration of the human spirit's ability to shine, even in the face of adversity. The boy with Down syndrome who was once laughed at had shown the world that courage, dedication, and love could create something truly extraordinary.